Hi, friend. This is Alex McRobbs, founder of the Mindful Life Practice, and you're listening to the Sober Yoga Girl podcast. I'm a Canadian who moved across the world to the Middle East at age 23, and I never went back. I got sober in 2019, and I now live full-time in Bali, Indonesia. I've made it my mission to help other women around the world stop drinking, start yoga, and change their lives through my online Sober Girls Yoga community. You're not alone, and a sober life can be fun and fulfilling. Let me show you how. All right, wonderful. Good morning, everyone, or I guess it's evening for majority of people in this call. It's morning for me in Bali, and I'm so happy that so many of you are here joining us. We have lots of old faces, lots of new faces, and this is a really, really special call because it is a live, it's the second time we're doing this, a live podcast interview with a live audience. But we also have my teacher and the author of one of my favorite books here, Rolf, to share a little bit about his journey and his story and answer any questions for all of you about sobriety and yoga and all things related. So welcome, Rolf. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. And I'm pretty excited to be able to see the work that you're doing in the world and just watching you kind of grow into this beautiful path of service. It's really fun.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so
Yeah.
wild. You know, I was thinking about it last night when I was just thinking about this call and how when I met Rolf, I was actually just at my 100-day sober mark. I think I met him on my 100 days sober. And it's pretty wild because, you know, in those early stages of sobriety, you just have no idea where you're going and where your life is going to lead you and the path is going to take you. And it's like really cool to now be here 3 years later doing this call.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Good job.
So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit and give us a bit of context into your kind of like your sober yoga journey. I know we've done an interview already together on the podcast, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard, but some people might have not heard it as well. So you could just kind of give a little context into your story for us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get I want to kind of get into the second half on this one. Yeah, I think we went pretty far into the drunkalog, I guess. Yeah, so I was I ended up in an orphanage. My mom put me in an orphanage when I was 10 days old, and I spent my first 2 years in an orphanage. And then I was adopted into a family that had some significant. Both my parents were highly traumatized, you know, products of the 30s and 40s, right? The Depression and the World War. So it was I had a lot of trauma, you know, and they say I'm working with the mother of a child who spent his first 8 years in an orphanage in Africa. And now he's a teenager in the United States. And what she says about him, and I think this is true for almost all of us on this call, is that you could drop him off in Tokyo and he'd do okay. You just drop him off by himself, he could be okay. And so, on the one hand, all that trauma is making it hard for him to negotiate being a teenager and have a family. On the other hand, he's a survivor. And so, I kind of knew that about myself, that on the one hand, I didn't really know how to live, but I really knew how to survive. And I think that there's that knowledge that, yeah, you could drop me off in Tokyo tomorrow and I'd be fine. And so, a lot of my using life was taking advantage of that. You know, like in sports, I remember walking around. I was at the States my senior year, and I went out. I went out before the tournament started, and I walked around, and I knew that I wanted it more than anyone else there. And so it didn't really matter what was going to happen. I had that deep craving that addicts have for something better, you know. And then I went to in the military and I did super hard training and I succeeded because I had that craving that addicts have for something better. Um, and um, and when it got time for me to get sober, I found it. You know, and I think I kind of want to start there in terms of uh, what I got sober in May of 1990, and I spent kind of June and July in rehab. I went to rehab sober, which is kind of, to me, it's always kind of funny. I didn't know at the time, but it's kind of very bad form. I was like 2 weeks sober when I went to rehab. Everyone else is like, everyone else like had a big, binge the night before and kind of rolled in with a hangover. And I actually was 2 weeks sober when I went to rehab. So I may be kind of a global phenomena. Like how many people were 2 weeks sober when they went? I didn't even do drinking right. I didn't even do sobriety. I didn't even do rehab right, and so I went to rehab 2 weeks sober, um, and I was beginning to find something, but it was in the spiritual friendship and spiritual community of my rehab. I was there for 6 weeks that I found what I'd been looking for in all the different situations. And there's a way that it's a perilous journey being active because like you'd walk through anything to get to what you're looking for. There's kind of nothing an addict won't do to get to what they're looking for. And unfortunately, we kind of walk down a lot of blind alleys. Like the last thing I was doing when I was active was I really felt like I thought that advanced special forces training was going to make me okay, and it didn't. And so then I knew that going to combat was going to make me okay, right? This is like the dead ends that addicts go down in search of like what they're looking for. And if you told me, what you're looking for isn't combat, it's actually sobriety, I would have never believed you. I would never have believed you, right? And some of us die on the way to sobriety, and some of us survive. My sister died, my best friend died, and I survived. And it's and one of the first things I heard getting sober was like, it's a free gift, and it's an unmerited gift, and that made a lot of sense to me. I didn't merit my sobriety more than my best friend or my sister. And my other sister, I have two sisters. My other sister is still out there. She's like 58 years old and still using. Can you imagine how hard her life has been? She's had a lot of challenges, to say the least, right? And so the fact that she's still out there and I'm not, and we grew up together, it's like that's an unmerited gift as well. Um, but once I got sober, I found what I was looking for. It's in the kind of the decency between two people in recovery. Um, if I can't, I mean, that was like I remember being about 2 months sober. I'm getting back from rehab and I'm going to these meetings in Germany. And this couple who were Reuters journalists, and that really impressed me. I'm like, wow, I'm like 26 years old, and these are Reuters journalists. And after a meeting, they kind of took me in. It's like central Germany. It's really gorgeous, and they kind of drove me around, and spent the afternoon with me and told me about their lives. And at some point, the husband said, "You never have to drink again." And I heard him, and I'd heard that phrase before, but on that particular afternoon, I remember thinking, like, it's just a scary thing to be told when you're new that you never have to drink again. And you're like, yeah, but, that could really blow up in my face, And this time when he said it as a friend and a mentor to me, even though we hardly knew each other. They like spent the afternoon with me, and then they were like he kind of delivered this, like you never drink again. And I remember like, yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. It may not happen for me, but that's what's here. That's what's here in the space that we create for one another. That's the opportunity. That's the invitation. And so I kind of found what I was looking for in in spiritual community. Like my father was a minister. I didn't really find what I was looking for in religion, but I found what I was looking for in spiritual friendship. I think this is, when I said it's cool to see the work that Alex is doing in the world, she's offering spiritual friendship generously. As it comes down to that. Like when I think, like, what is Alex up to? She's off. She's like has this huge heart, this huge smile, and she's offering spiritual friendship. And guess what? It freaking works. it matters and it works. It's like, what do you need in life? It's like a smile like hers and a heart like hers to kind of share the journey with you. It's kind of like what you need. And I found that. I'm like, oh my God, this is what I'm looking for. Apparently, it's not combat. Like this. So if you learned one thing from me tonight, it's just like we're not looking for combat. We're looking for friendship. Sometimes we get confused. Sometimes we get confused about what will make us happy. Um, but what I was looking for in combat was a sense of self-respect and the respect of others. And I knew that if I had self-respect, I would be able to garner respect. I just didn't know how to get there, And that's another free gift of spiritual friendship, and it's a free gift of recovery. Um, so I kind of want to let Alex ask a question from there, but like that's the tee off for tonight. Is just we were looking for love in all the wrong places, right? And then we found the right place. It's like I've been listening to Jack Cornfield's podcast on meditation called the Heart Wisdom Podcast. He talks about pointing in the right direction. And I love that phrase because it's like when you're pointing in the right direction. And for my active years, I knew I wasn't pointing in the right direction. I had no idea how to point in the right direction. And not using for one day was how I could point in the right direction.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that reference to spiritual friendship. I think it was, might have been you that shared this quote that the Buddha was asked. Oh no, I can't even remember what it was. What's the most important? Maybe it was what's the most important thing in the spiritual practice, and it was spiritual friendship was the answer. And I think that just shows the importance and the relevance of community in our lives, which we all know, which is why we're all here, because we rise when we're like supported by others. So tell me about, Rolf, what other, I think we talked in the last episode about how yoga came into your life and supported you through your journey. What were like the main tools and practices that you used in your sobriety?
Okay, well, I mean, I was an adamant 12-step goer my first like 10 years. I was kind of like a meeting a day guy. And I was living in Harvard Square, which was like perfect. It had like just the right meetings. It's kind of everything I was looking for. Like I had like the community. So we were going to different meetings every day, but it was the same people kind of thing. And I had this like this sangha, this community that I really just held me as I kind of did. I mean, it's super hard. It was super hard for me. Alex is a young person as well. Like being 26, 27 years old sober is like, I was just, they didn't know how to live. And so I had to go through the growing pains of like figuring out how to pay my bills and have roommates and like get the right kind of job. It took me about 5 years to figure out what I wanted to do for work. Um, I almost ended up a restaurant manager. That would have been a very bad decision. Nothing wrong with restaurant management. I'm just saying it wasn't my calling. Um, and so the meetings kind of held me for those first 5 years in particular when I was really not able to do much. And it was really okay to be able to kind of sit down in a meeting and that was as good as that was my skill set. It's being able to physically get to the meeting and sit down. And that's all that life required of me was to be able to physically get there, sit down, and then whatever I heard that day, try to apply it to my life, and then go to the next one. And that was like fine, that worked great. Um, there, of course, I learned about like the 11th step was meditation. So about 18 months into it, I started trying to meditate, and that worked great. And then there was this young woman who was a flute player and a yoga teacher. And I'm like, wow, she's special. So that's how yoga got into my, you're like, there's a lot of different tales I can tell about but the first time I ever like paid attention to yoga was because of this. I'm like, she's wonderful. She had like 3 months sobriety, so so nothing much came of that, but she was wonderful. And so that made me open to yoga, right? I became open to yoga, and then I ended up with my future wife, and she went to Kripalu, um, and Kripalu is this yoga center in Massachusetts, and I ended up taking my first classes there. And so I think that the first 10 years of my recovery, like the first 5 years, was just meeting every day to get that support from other sober people. And then um, once I really started to do poses, um, I was hooked immediately. I went to my first class and I was walking to breakfast. The whole thing's in one big building, and my whole body was different. Um, and I had so like I think of trauma now. It's the things everyone talks about in recovery is that you don't feel comfortable in your own skin. You're like 3 drinks shy of comfortable. That doesn't really go anywhere when you stop using. It's still there because it's kind of a mental and emotional stance that you've got stuck in. Like I listened to a talk recently about yoga and trauma, and this person described trauma as being stuck in a state. You get stuck in these states, meaning something happens and we get stuck in that state. And so I was walking to breakfast, and the state that I had been stuck in. Now I had been stuck in something my whole life. My parents were stuck in something, right? My mother was a white co-ed and my dad was an African uh, exchange student, and they were stuck in like the racial confusion of the United States. Like he was stuck in his tribal stuff. Like he invited my mom back to be his first wife back to Africa, and my mom from Albany, New York, was like, I don't want to go to Africa to be your first wife, right? So there's like they were stuck in a yeah. She had a point, and so they were very stuck in some stuff. And then my community growing up in Boston in the '70s, a lot of stuckness there. Um, and so all that stuff, it wasn't just like my life, but the lives of those who come before me was in my connective tissue. And as you come to understand what poses are doing, poses are taking that stuckness in your connective tissue and allowing it to open and release what it's holding on to. And I was so stuck that I actually had scoliosis when I started doing yoga, and about 3 years into it, it was gone. It was just like my body was like ah. And as I started doing the poses, my body went into mountain pose, and it's never come back. And so walking there, I got relief from the the um, the tension of unresolved trauma in your mind and your heart and your body. I had my first taste of relief. I'd been meditating before then, but it wasn't until you brought the practice into my body that I started to be like, wow. And I couldn't go back after that. Once you've felt the freedom that the poses give you from being in those stuck places, it's like you just don't want anything else. Um, so that was like 95 to like 205. I was like the posture guy. The same way I was like the meetings guy, I became the posture guy. I taught postures. I became a yoga teacher in 97. I taught postures. Of course, what happened is yoga got popular, and then yoga became like athletic, right? And intense. Um, and so I wouldn't call it re-traumatizing, but I do think that you kind of want to know what you're trying to accomplish. And I think we kind of lost our way a little bit
Hmm.
when yoga got popular. I think the example of when you're taking a pose skillfully, you're doing so without an ounce of extra effort. This is kind of the non-harming commitment that you make, and that I think is similar. Like the first step in a 12-step program, like choosing to let go of the drink is committing to non-harming. They don't say it that, but you're really on a path of non-harming. You've chosen a path of awakening, and you've chosen a path of non-harming. And there's a way that when you're doing poses with extra effort, you kind of lose your. Once again, you're not really pointing in the right direction. And so I could only go so far in the like athletic yoga scene without finding the course correction I found in meditation. And so my daughter was born in 2003, and I was like, I need a new resource. it's like it's like being um, being kind of single. My wife and I were single together, kind of thing. Like she'd have her job, I had my job, then we'd meet, at night and like watch movies and eat takeout, and it was that was like our marriage, right? And then we have a baby and things get a lot more complicated, you know. Um, and I needed a new resource, and I started to go on meditation retreats and really develop a serious meditation practice. And that's been like my last 15 years. So now I'm the meditation guy. I was the meeting guy, and then I was the posture guy, and now I'm the meditation guy. Now I do all of it. Now I do all three together. So those I would say those are my three primary resources. But you got to give it away to keep it. So when I was a meetings guy, I became an addictions counselor. When I was a posture guy, I became a yoga teacher. And when I became a meditation guy, I became a meditation teacher. So I've always taught what I was learning. And so I think that's a very important uh, ingredient to this is that, yeah, if you're like 3 months sober, don't worry about it. If you're even 3 years sober, maybe don't worry about it. Just kind of let the process come to you. But giving back what you're teaching back what you're learning is, I think, part of learning.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think that lines up with this theme that just keeps coming into my world right now is this idea of like the relevance and importance of service in sobriety and sharing and giving back and playing a role. Yeah, Kathy says seva, which is service in Sanskrit, exactly. Yeah, so the seva practice and the practice of sharing and giving back. And I know it has helped me stay committed to my sobriety is knowing that I have to show up to hold space, or I've made a commitment to be there for someone. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And tell me about kind of the offerings that you have now. I know you have your online yoga Zoom classes, which I love, by the way, because I remember back when I was first getting sober, I was like searching for yoga that I could do online with Rolf, because Rolf was in California and I was in Abu Dhabi, and there was like one YouTube video that I've seen like a million
Oh yeah.
times. And
You're
now
probably
thanks to
the person.
COVID.
That's probably why I have that many views.
It's
It was you.
all,
You were just taking class.
it's all me. Early
Yeah.
days sobriety. And that's the beauty of now the world with COVID and us all having to go online, is that Rolf now has like lots of online Zoom classes and his own online studio. But I was wondering if you could share like what other work do you do right now in yoga? And
Yeah. I mean, I want. Let me. I'll be happy to talk. How are we doing for time? Because I don't want to. I'll like
we're we're about
have
halfway
five.
through.
Okay. Good. I do want to talk about like what it's like now, because that was kind of like my like, okay, what happened, what it's like, and I do think that there's like a kind of like, okay, so you put 32 years together, like what did that look like? And it's like, well, I had these three practices that were kind of, deal breakers. If I didn't have the meetings and the yoga and the meditation, I wouldn't be able to kind of keep my stuff together, I think, and they were like, I needed spiritual practice to stay on, in yeah, stay pointing in the right direction. Um, uh, I think that I should say that today it's just as important as it was in year one to kind of do what I can. Like we have what we're I think what you discover in recovery is that you have these bone deep aspirations, this heart intention for your life. And the heartbreak of using is that you can't put out forth an effort that's respectful of your aspirations. It's impossible. You have your aspirations, but you can't kind of follow through. Follow through is just not like an acrobatic word. Um, and one of the first gifts of sobriety is that you start to be able to follow through. It's like, gee, if I want to get to work tomorrow, I just have to go to bed and wake up and go. Oh my God, follow through is a lot. If I've been drinking all night, I may or may not get to work. But in sobriety, you go to bed, you wake up, you have a little breakfast, and you go to work, and all of a sudden, you've cracked the code on follow through. You've hacked follow through, right? And that's like massive. Um, and the phrase that I use with people today is that you want to put forth an effort that feels respectful of your aspirations. And so I want to close this part by talking about those two qualities. One is to be sensitive to your aspirations. You'll sit in meetings or at a place like this, or you'll watch a movie and there'll be something that really jumps out at you, and pay close attention. the things that make you cry, the things that stir your heart. That's like, to me, life kind of winks at you and reminds you of your heart's desire, of your true aspirations in life. Um, and it's kind of our job to care. I'm astonished by how many people go through life wishing they could do this and wishing they could do that, but not kind of caring about themselves enough to say, I'm just going to do this. Like, I remember being in my mid 40s, and I'd lived in cold places my whole life. And I was just like, I got to spend at least 1 year without winter, you know, before I die. I just want to know what it's like. And I moved to California. I've been here 15 years, but it was like, this was an aspiration of mine. And it was not an easy thing. I had like when we moved to California, my daughter was 5, my son was 2. I was on a yoga teacher salary. It wasn't a simple matter, but I put forth the effort that was respectful of my heart's desire, of my aspiration. And so there's that kind of big picture, like, guys, do it. Like, whatever your like cool thing you want to do, don't wait. Just go ahead and do it. Like, that's like, come on, right? Do the cool thing that you think would be that like, this is it. This is the time. Sobriety is the time to like go do the cool things. And I definitely have done the cool, like, the things that I wanted to do. I don't have like a bucket list really. Okay, I have one thing. I want to go to the the Division 1 national tournament. I haven't been yet. Every year there's a national tournament for college and wrestling in the United States, and I haven't been. Okay, so I have something on my bucket list, and I want to go. Um, but yeah, live your bucket list like this year. Why not? Why wait, right? Um, the other thing, and I think this is what Alex kind of represents, is like she kind of got sober and is like, I'm gonna like do the stuff I want to do. I want to do the cool things. Um, and she's out there giving us all the thumbs up, like, go ahead, do those cool things. They're cool. Um, and so respect your aspirations and kind of put forth the effort in the big picture, but also in the the day to day. Like, my sobriety lives in my day to day. It's the amount of sleep I get. It's like respecting myself enough to sleep right, to eat right, to exercise, to work out in a way that's smart and moderate. I've done a lot of, as you can imagine, as a recovering person, I've done immoderate exercise that only harms yourself. Like, non-harming exercise is a great idea. Um, Show up in your friendships in a way that put forth the effort in your friendships that is respectful of your aspirations. Put forth, it's like all the little forms of love in your life. Like, I've been a dog. I've had dogs all my life. It's like loving my dogs well is part of my sober aspirations. My wife, my kids, my neighbors. And then, of course, my community. Alex is a part of my community. And if she asks me to do something, I'm gonna like make an effort to do it. And so there's this opportunity that we have to kind of connect to our heart's intention, to our true aspirations, and then work towards them, and live each day with that kind of the gratification of being like, I may not be there yet, but I'm putting forth the effort, and I'm heading in that direction, and to me, that was the permission I was given by getting sober. Was like, I don't, it's not really about getting somewhere. It's about pointing in the right direction and moving in a way that feels respectful of myself. Yeah, it's one day at a time. There you go.
Amazing. All right, I'm going to open it up now. I want to know if anyone who's listening in has any questions for Rolf. We have a hand up from Carolyn. Carolyn, the midnight in the UK.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's 2 a.m. um,
Wow.
I just wanted to ask the question because I've had like 40 years of my life drinking, suppressing, the trauma, hiding from it, running from it. And so 2 years, well, like 20 months ago, I got sober, and I absolutely think it's the greatest gift ever. And I've just this year, and I'm going to be 60 soon I discovered yoga. And I'm like thinking, like, I suppose there's a little anxiety in me in terms of, oh my God, there's life to be lived, right? And I've left it till now. And so I just want to do it all. But then, that's not integrating it into who I am, if that makes any sense. It's kind of this level of excitement about being sober, and also coupled with the fact that I am in the autumn of my life. So I suppose my question is around, like, what advice would you give to someone that's come into sobriety so late and come into yoga so late and is seeing the benefits of it so late?
Um, well, I think first of all, congratulations and welcome, right?
Yeah. Thanks.
I guess Warren Zevon was dying, and he was on David Letterman, and David Letterman was a friend of his, and so David Letterman was it's this emotional interaction, and he asked Warren Zevon like, what would you tell people about living, in this moment of your life? And what Warren Zevon said was, enjoy your sandwich. That life is lived in the sandwich that you're eating. Life is lived in the spring walk that you're doing with your dog. It's like life is lived here. Jack Kornfield said that we need to kind of roll up the past and roll up the future, and all of the past and all of the future can be resolved in this moment. Just kind of roll it up and put it right here. And so um, give the present your full undivided attention. And I do think that what Jack Kornfield is implying is that whatever you were meant to do in this lifetime, you can do it in this moment. If you want to open the doors to, if you want to relieve the suffering of countless others, you can probably do it in this in breath and this out breath. If you want to experience, the joys of nature or the joys of friendship and connection, all of that can be done today in this breath, and it can't be done anywhere else. We can't do it in the past, and we can't do it in the future. We can so like just use the whatever anxieties or that you have as like to help you resolve to live today. Like I lost my sister and I lost my best friend to this disease, and I've used that loss to put resolve into how I show up for the people who are in my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I lost my father and my brother to this disease. So I'm very, very grateful. And that there's such wisdom in what you've just said there. Such wisdom. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Let's
Carolyn.
see.
I see Perry's hand up as well. Perry, do you want to ask?
Yes. Hi, Rolf. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Perry.
Hi. I'm so glad to see that there's a nice group of 50 plus people here tonight, my self included. And when you were talking about the stuckness with yoga poses, that was the first thing that came to mind, because I've only been doing yoga for a few years, but I do get frustrated and feel like, why am I like, is it too late? Also in that same theme, am I going to be able to get some of these things unstuck? Is this, do I need to be doing yoga like 12 hours a day? You know what I mean? Because I can feel it in certain places and I don't want to get discouraged. And I know it's really never too late, but how does that physically work?
I think we have to trust the process. Um, I was in meditation today. There are five afflictions in mindfulness. So there's wanting and not wanting, and these take us off our game, like craving and aversion. There's anxiety, and there's also like kind of sloth and torpor, right? And but the hardest of them is doubt. I've actually made a lot of progress in my meditation practice. It's astonishing, but it actually it's like if you practice, you get better at things, you know. And so now my meditation practice is very deep. And I was in this experience of there's a phrase that not only are we kind of living through God, God is living through us. And so one of the things I do in meditation is I become conscious of the fact that God is seeing the world through each of us, and it helps me because I become kind of it helps me to let myself get small, you know, my self-centeredness get small because I'm allowing God to see through me, and that may or may not work for you, but it really works for me. This idea that like that I can kind of feel God seeing the world through, like well, if God sees the world through you, how do you want to be in that moment, right? And so I'm having this deep connection to the present, and what was revealed to me was that is that I still have doubt that I can connect to the present and that I can heal, and that doubt is what's holding me back from the present. I'm fully aware of like wanting and not wanting. I don't do anxiety that much. I kind of do sloth and torpor. Anxiety can also be restlessness, trying to like do three things at once instead of one thing at a time, right? That can be anxiety. That's restlessness. But I didn't really see doubt, and sure enough, there it was. And so I think for both of the last two hands that went up, one of the things that kicks our butt is doubting ourselves and our capacity to be happy. And it's really the question. The question isn't like, can I do this or that? It's more like, can I be happy? Do I believe that I can be happy? And for me, at least, as I tried to rest in the present moment, there it was. The subtle energy that's kind of holding me apart was that long entrenched belief that maybe I can't be happy, or maybe I can't accomplish my goals, and that keeps us apart from our goals. But what getting quiet and what getting still does is it lets us feel these subtle energies or not so subtle energies, and see our volition, see our agency, that we can let that stuff go. Like like without the contemplative practice, that energy is going to be like there. Everything you do, am I wrong on this? Right? Everything you do, there's this subtle energy of like we have to kind of feel our relationship to ourselves and feel both our kind of shadow, right? That doubt, because like why wouldn't we have a little doubt? And we've made a few mistakes, you know. I don't know. I have, you know. There could be a little doubt about the our efficacy in life, but then what we're seeking is hiding in plain sight in front of us, and we're kind of holding ourselves subtly apart from it. And what our practice is doing is allowing us to let go and connect, you know. And so I would kind of look at that, like looking at the doubt that you just mentioned as just what's holding you apart from what you're seeking. All right, there's a bunch of hands.
I think is Rick next? Prof Rick.
Hi. Yeah, sorry, that's my funky screen name in my sober communities.
Love it.
I'm a chef and a prof. So I'm so excited. So I've been doing yoga for 8 to 10 years, and I've been sober a little over 3 years now. And I've loved your book, especially Daily Reflections. And so I was in my yoga class a couple of years ago, and my teacher Alan, he always said things that sounded familiar to me from when I was in the rooms of AA and where I started, and got him our understanding and stuff. And I'm like going, where did you get some of that language? He goes, oh, I learned that from my teacher Rolf. I'm like going, what? Rolf was your teacher? OMG. I was like so blown away. He's since moved on, but from our town, but I loved that guy. I loved his spirit so much. Really cool guy. Yeah, so I appreciate you teaching him and so many other people and so many other people of color, men of color that I know that you've taught. And I think that's a really incredible thing. So my question for you, so I've been doing yoga for 10 years. I've been sober 3 years. It's the balancing steps are a lot easier now than they were. That was a joke. But I really, it's always guided me in lots of ways. What I think is really, and I'm really fascinated with the sobriety and the changes in sobriety now. I am an historian, so I'm actually really interested in how this has changed through time. And I'm involved in like 5 different groups. I started in AA, but I'm in all kinds of different groups, including Recovery Dharma, all kinds of things I've done. So, but what do you think about the changes in recovery systems and opportunities in the last, generation? It's just, or even less, maybe 20 years. It seems like it's really been on fire. We've got one right here, really. So do you have any thoughts about that? Because it used to just be one game in town, really, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a little bit what they started. I mean, the phrase back in the day was all you need to start a meeting is a resentment and a and a pot of coffee, right? It's
Yeah,
like another way to think about it is if you don't like what you hear in a meeting, say it yourself.
yeah,
And so that was why when I started training teachers, I didn't really like the teacher training world back when I started. Like it seemed like people were making a lot of money by kind of not training people that well. And so I just kind of stood apart from it for a while. And then I realized if you don't like what you see here in a meeting, say it yourself. And so what I think's happened, what you're saying, speaking to, Rick, is that a lot of people got some inspiration at this meeting or that meeting, and then they that gave them the inspiration to say it themselves, right?
yeah,
And I think we're evolving. I think we're a very resourceful species, and so I think there's a tremendous. I mean, for me, like the 12-step thing worked great, and then the yoga thing worked great, and then the meditation thing worked great, and now I do like something that's like entirely didn't exist when I started, right? And I think that there's a lot of people. Nikki Myers is a friend of mine. She started Y12SR. It would be an
right.
example. Tommy Rosen is a friend of mine with Recovery 2.0. Alex is a friend of mine, right? And then
Yeah,
you see these people who just have they've gained insight from their sobriety into um, how we can help each other, and they have the gift to be able to facilitate that help. And I think that's just like you said, it's just proliferating,
yeah,
And the thing to do, what I tell yoga teachers is when you're in my training, when someone comes back and says, "Hey, this is what's up," I'm like, you give them two thumbs up.
yeah,
And so I don't care, like, meaning they're like, "Hey, I want to help people with strokes," or "Hey, I want to help people who are in homeless shelters." You're like, "That's cool. You're going to succeed with that."
yeah,
It's like you are going to succeed with that. And if someone is like founding a sobriety effort and helping people with it, our job is to give them two thumbs up. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, yeah.
And so I mean, and I just think what's exciting, also, Rick, is that what you're seeing, wait till 10, 20 years from now.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? It's going to be
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
So,
I just to add on, I think it's really different for women in the last 20 years, and the other groups that I'm a part of are heavily female, and that tells me something about the changes that are happening, including the work that Alex does. But yeah, anyway,
yeah.
thank you. Yeah,
Nice to meet you,
Awesome.
Rick.
Thanks so much, Rick.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna invite Yasser. You have a question, Yasser?
Hello. Hi, Rolf. How are you?
Hi there.
I'm a big fan, and your book got me into yoga actually, and so I appreciate that. So I have a question. Well, first, I want to know your experience being a man in yoga, and what advice you have for men to do more yoga.
I don't know. I mean, I was an athlete, and I kind of went after it like an athlete. Like once I, yeah, I always had trained myself, so it really wasn't that, um, it wasn't that hard. I wanted what yoga had to offer, and so I chased it. And I don't know, like for instance, I was a person of color, and there wasn't a lot of people of color. I didn't really care. I had trauma, and the yoga wasn't trauma informed, and I didn't really care. It was like I could kind of take care of myself and go get what I wanted by showing up to class and by getting trained. So I had a little bit of blinders on, if that makes sense. I think I'm not sure exactly if there's a difficulty that you're having as a man in yoga, but I feel like um, I went to yoga. I didn't go to yoga to necessarily to make friends or to fit in. I went to yoga because it was changing my life. Um, and then, of course, I found that the people were great, they really are, but that's not why I went. I went there because of the practice. And I also, I really was touched by the intention of the teachers. I have to say that my teachers weren't perfect, but there was a kindness to their invitation. Hey, try this. I trusted and appreciated my teachers, and they were people from back in the day. So their classes were like four people in a closet somewhere, in a college town. It wasn't like it is now. But they had learned enough about yoga to say, hey, come and try this, and I really appreciated them for that. Did that answer your question at all? I'm not sure.
Yes, yeah. And my experience is pretty much the same. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. And then we, the more of us that are there, the more I think, like you said, like Rick said about women in these other recovery circles, I just think it's kind of nice, to show up and have people like yourself there, and feel welcome in that way. And I'm glad women are doing that for themselves in these other spaces, because it's a lot. One thing about 12 step is that there's like the Bill W. kind of male presentation alcoholic. And I think there's a ton of women, and especially nowadays, who are like stopping drinking, who don't track to the like Bill Wilson bottoming out narrative. And they're all reporting that not drinking is huge for them, and it's cool to have that perspective validated. All right, I think we got Julie. Did I see Julie?
Yeah. Hi, Julie. I haven't seen Julie in a while. She was on my
Hi.
regular
Okay,
feed.
one sec.
Hi.
Sorry. Hi. Oh my God. Hi. I did
Hi,
not think
Julie.
I'd be called. Hi. Oh my God. It's so good to be here. I was gonna say my name is Julie and I'm an alcoholic. I'm just used to saying that. Hi, Rolf. Alex. I can't even. It's so great to be here. Now I lost my question. I was just messaging Kathy saying, "Can I ask anything?" Because I came in a little bit late. I guess my question is, Rolf, to you, um, is how did you deal with resentments? Because I'm holding on to one for 2 years now, and I can't seem to get over it. I have a sponsor and whatever, this 12 step, I know it's not all about this 12 step program or whatever, but I am in one. And how did you like deal with your resentments, and also getting into yoga? Like I already heard that, but I haven't done yoga since Mexico, to be honest. So just like I'm feeling depressed basically, and I want to know how to like how you got over like resentments and felt like peace within yourself, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I do think that you've got to kind of, you know, I had a lot of, for step one, you had to be really patient, um, with yourself, and kind of enjoy the fact of your physical sobriety. Like that has to be a big deal to you because the other stuff happens slowly. Um, and so I had to be kind of like, I had to be in a certain amount of pain and confusion for, a fair number of years because I wasn't able to do the inner. There's a phrase called external mindfulness and internal mindfulness, and the idea is that the Buddha described what we're doing as a cooling process. Right? When we're fully active, we're like a hot potato, and initially you just go to cooling places. Like this call kind of is cooling for us. We all kind of cool down a little bit. Maybe the right friendships, the right job, the right living situation. And so you find these external cooling circumstances until you can start to internally cool. You start to have some resources to cool yourself internally. And for me, it was about a good 10 years where my skill set was about external cooling. I'd go to these nice places and I'd cool down a little bit. but I really didn't know how to manage my inner life. And it wasn't until I started to meditate, and it is the 11th step. I mean, these people knew about it, um, that I could sit with a feeling and then sort myself out. A very old text says that a human life is like a tangle. And you've got to kind of sit with something for a while to be able to untangle it and be like a little things like maybe I'm okay with having this feeling and it not being resolved. Maybe that's part of the. It's like I don't have to be different. You know, my life doesn't have to be different. I can, or maybe I can change my mind. One of the things I did in meditation was learn how to forgive myself, and when I could forgive myself, I could forgive other people. Until I could forgive myself, I can't forgive anybody else. And so that's like down the road stuff. For a long time, it was just important for me to know where the cooling spaces were and to go there, to respect myself enough to bring the body and the mind will follow. It's like go to the places that make you feel safe, that make you feel hopeful, that like do the external mindfulness stuff until it's like you're ready to do the internal mindfulness stuff and have faith in yourself in the process. I'd also say have faith in life. I was talking to this woman who's just like, I don't know if I should quit my pot yet. And I was like, right, but you're having a relationship to life. And life is like, what? I'm not good enough without you. You need pot for to be in a relationship with me, and it helped her because she was just like, yeah, why would I diss life like that? The only way that I can be in a relationship with life is with pot. What if someone told you that? Right? I was like, give life a chance. And so having a little faith in life, and then you'll get we always get what we need, one day at a time. I should go to Kathy, right?
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, Julie.
Thank you for being here.
Kathy, do you want to go next? Go for
If we have enough time.
it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Um, so thank you for all the gifts you give us in this world. And we're so grateful that Alex was a student of yours because we benefit so much in this community from that. Um, Alex and I started an emotional sobriety group called the 108 group, and it's based off of the koshas. And this week is I cannot say it. I keep trying to pronounce it. The bliss sheath, that Ananamaya, I can say it really. And this is the second time around that I'm teaching this. And I just feel like this was it tonight. The bliss within is what you were talking about, the spiritual. And I don't know if you've ever explained it before to anyone, but I'm still struggling with how to explain it to the women in the emotional sobriety group. And I didn't know, to me, tonight defines it, but I didn't know if you have a definition when you think of the sheath at all, and relating it to sobriety. And what we've done is taken the layers, the kosha layers, and related it to sobriety, if that makes any sense. But I just would love to have some more insight from your wisdom.
Yeah, well, in Samkhya philosophy, which is what yoga flows from, it says our true nature is wholeness and joy, and that we're just kind of subtraction is the process. We're letting go of all that is not wholeness and joy. And this is what I think the faith that we were talking to Julie yesterday, just before this, the faith that that's your actual process. Your actual process is coming back to your true nature, which is wholeness and joy. And you can sense it. That's why I was like, listen to your aspirations, because that's your bliss body speaking to you. It's like listen to your heart. That's your heart speaking to you. It's like those things that bring you wholeness and joy. In the external mindfulness, you kind of go to the places that bring you wholeness and joy. And then in the internal mindfulness, you give yourself permission to experience wholeness and joy. For a while, you feel like I got to go to yoga to find wholeness and joy. But eventually, but I think I was speaking to that that woman about doubt, it's like I was like, I want to rest in wholeness and joy. And what's standing between me and resting in wholeness and joy is doubt, is thinking maybe I can't, without it, without investigation, right? Like doubt just kind of exists without proof, right? And so I was working with that this morning in my meditation, and I think that the the recovering person feels so distant, like the active person feels so different from wholeness and joy. Imagine someone who's just like, I'm going to find wholeness and joy in combat. I don't think I was going to find wholeness and joy in combat, right? But like, how disconnected are we from our true nature, from where we would find it? Are you my mommy? Are you my mommy? Right? It's like, and I just think we really need each other. Each of us is discovering our true nature kind of one day at a time. And what we do is kind of remind each other of what the path will look like. It's probably not going to be going into combat. It probably won't be doing hallucinogens, right? It's probably going to be something that's kind of a little more kind and compassionate and wise. And we just kind of hold that. And we give each other two thumbs up. We're like, I think you're probably doing okay. I think if you take one more step in the right direction today, that's going to be fine. And I think each step in the right direction, we kind of taste that wholeness and joy a little more. So I call it wholeness and joy.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Sure.
All right. Well, I guess that brings us to our hour. So I just want to thank you so much, Rolf, for being here. It really, really means a lot. And I just want to thank everyone for showing up as well. Like, it's just so wonderful to have our community and our spiritual friendship. And I think we're all kind of taking away some really impactful pieces of wisdom and nuggets to help us keep moving in the right direction. So thank you so much, Rolf. We really appreciate you.
Hi, you're welcome, Alex. It's so good to be here.
Hi, friend. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Sober Yoga Girl podcast. This community wouldn't exist without you here, so thank you. It would be massively helpful if you could subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast so it can reach more people. If we haven't met yet in real life, please come get your 1-week free trial of the Sober Girls Yoga membership and see what we're all about. Sending you love and light wherever you are in the world.